Okay, so when how you're going to remember this? You're going to remember it as some examples. We have studied some examples, right? So you will remember the examples. You will remember the definition of each pesticide. This is the purpose, or you can define this. You can take this as a definition for everyone. And what are the functions? What exactly they do? That is what you have to remember for your exams. Okay. Now we are going to start with next type of uh, substances which are called as plant growth regulators. Okay, are you all able to hear me clearly? What do we call this? Okay, these are called as plant growth regulators. What does that mean? So far, what did we study? We study how to protect our plants. Now, what are we going to study? How to increase the growth of our plants. So, what are plant growth regulators? These are the chemicals which regulate the growth of the plants, development of the plants. Okay, these are the substances which accelerate the growth of the plants, and for certain plants we can also retard the growth. Okay, so regulator can act in two ways. Either they can increase the growth, that is accelerate the growth, or they can retard the growth or slow down the growth of the plants or stop the growth of the plants. Okay, that is why they are called as regulators. Next is, these are different types of substances. We can have natural as well as synthetic ones. Okay, natural of course are much better than the synthetic ones. And how do they act? They alter the life process of the plants to improve the quantity, to improve the quality of the plants. Okay, so there are two types of plant growth regulators. One are called as promoters and the second ones are called as inhibitors. Okay, so what do you understand by the word promoter? Promoter means what? To promote something. Okay, so to grow something, like what exactly it does? It promotes, it enhances the growth of the plant. How does it promote? It promotes the cell division, it promotes the flowering, it promotes the formation of fruits, it promotes the formation of seeds. Okay, and these are where those who are from botany and zoo, they must be knowing about these auxins, gibberellins and cytokinins. We mix it with the soil, we add it to the plants, so the growth of the plants is enhanced by these three chemicals, right? Second one are called as inhibitors, plant growth inhibitors. From the name itself, we come to know they inhibit, they stop the growth of the plants. So these are the chemicals which inhibit the growth or promote dormancy. Dormancy means what? The plant will not grow. Okay, the growth of the plant will be stopped. Example this abscisic acid. So these are both of them come under the class of what? Plant growth regulators. So we are going to study this. Have you all understood this so far? Okay. Okay. So what are these? Like, let's start with the first one. As we said, auxins, right? Indole 3 acetic acid is a well-known auxin for the growth of the plant. This is indole 3 acetic acid. This moiety, this is a heterocyclic group, and to this acetate group, acid group is attached, and this is your acetic acid group. Okay. So what is this? This is a plant growth hormone. What does it do? Now you have to remember it in this way. It is produced, this plant growth hormone produced in the stem tip. Okay, it's produced at the tip of the stem, right? And it promotes cell elongation. It's a powerful growth hormone. It is always found in the shoot and the root tips. So here it is found at the root tip. So even the roots start to grow, and at the shoot tip, so these shoots are also growing. Okay. So what exactly they do? They promote the cell division, they promote the stem and the root growth. You can see it over here. Our plants generally move towards what? Sunlight. Okay. So how they are moving towards the sunlight? This part is the auxin part where it is present, right? So you can see this orange color shaded part. This is the shoot of the plant. Okay, similar mechanism is possible for the roots of the plant. So this is how you get the plant gets the sunlight, and because of this, the plants, or the direction of the growth of the plant grows towards the sunlight, because the auxins are growing, or and they are multiplying towards that sunlight. So shoots are positively phototropic, means they will go towards the light. The cell division takes place in presence of or by absorption of light. Are you getting this? Okay. So this is your plant orientation. So how does it happen? By promoting cell division to one side of the plant in response to the sunlight. Okay. Auxins move towards the darker side of the plants, causing the cells to grow towards the lighter side of the plant. So wherever there is light, in that direction, our plants will start to grow. Okay, that is how the auxins act. So what you going to remember is auxins are a powerful growth hormone. They are present at the tips of the shoot and the roots. Okay, and because of the cell division, the root and the shoot tips start to grow. Are you getting this, students? Okay, fine. Next is gibberellins. Now what are these? Now for example, just look at this image over here. Okay, these are grapes. You can see the difference between the two sets of grapes. Okay, these are the smaller ones and these are the larger ones, and the quantity of the grapes is also very high. So what that person has done, or what the farmers do, they add this gibberellic acid, and because of this gibberellic acid, the quality of the fruit or the flowers is enhanced. You can see the quality, the size, the number of the grapes. This has enhanced. The plumpness, they become more juicy. They become more plump. Are you understanding this? So that is the use of gibberellic acid. This is your gibberellic acid. These are the different derivatives of gibberellic acid are called as gibberellins. This is the gibberellic acid that we are adding to the plants. Are you getting this? So what do? They regulate various developmental process. So what are the developmental process they are regulating? They regulate stem elongation. They regulate germination. More importantly, flowering. If flowering is enhanced, if there are fruits growing through those flowers, the fruits are enhanced, the quality of the fruits is enhanced, the quality of the flower is enhanced. Okay, so these are some of the uses, or you can say roles of gibberellins. Are you getting this? The taste of the fruit is enhanced, the juiciness of the fruits is enhanced, the fruit becomes more plumpy, the fruit's aroma is enhanced. All these properties are enhanced because of gibberellic acid. Are you understanding this? Okay, so this is very very important. So most of the time we have to use the gibberellins so that we get good quality of flowers and fruits. And the next one are called as cytokinins. Now you can see this. This is your cytokinin. Again, this is a heterocyclic compound. Okay, so where are they present? They are present in plant tissues. And since they are present in plant tissues, they enhance the growth. So more or less, each and every one is having a similar function, right? Where are they present? They are present at the root tip. They are present at the apex of the shoot. Okay, they are present in the immature seeds. The seeds can mature faster. They promote cell division, right? So they are enhancing the growth of the plant's roots, and they are enhancing the growth of the plant's shoots. Are you getting this? So the seeding takes place faster, the seeds grow faster to the plant, right? Expansion of the leaves takes place. Okay, delay of senescence means early death of the plant. The longevity of the plant is increased. The plant will last longer, last for a longer time. Okay, it won't die faster because the growth of the leaves is there. There is the stem growth is there. Okay, so the life of the plants is increased because of cytokinins. Are you understanding this, students? Can you just let me know so that I can proceed? Okay. So what are the three uh, substances that we studied in plant growth regulators. Can you just quickly tell me which are the three substances which we did? Yes. Hmm. Yes. Auxins, in auxins, what did we study? Indole 3 acetic acid. In gibberellins, it is gibberellic acid, right? And what common answer that you can study for them is they enhance the plant growth by enhancing the root and the shoot growth. By gibberellin acids, what are they responsible for? They are responsible for producing good quality of fruits and flowers. Larger fruits and flowers, plump fruits. Are you understanding this? Okay. Now let's see what are the advantages and disadvantages of agrochemicals. Now, most of the agrochemicals that the farmers are using, like most of them are synthetic agrochemicals. Okay, so whenever we use a synthetic agrochemical, of course, there are some disadvantages, right? So, what are the disadvantages? Now, let's say both advantages and disadvantages. What are the advantages? Whatever we have studied so far, what are the advantages? The yields of the crop is increased. So if there is more crop in the market, then the cost of that particular crop also reduces. Are you getting this? So the amount of crops produced in the field is directly proportional, like you can say inversely proportional to the crop cost. More the crops, lesser is the cost. Are you understanding this? Okay. Now there are these floods in Maharashtra, right? So what has happened is lot of farmers have lost their fields, their crops. Now what will happen? The cost of the crops is going to increase. The crops of the vegetables may increase. The crops of the food grains may increase. The reason is that there is loss from the farmer's side, right? So there is less crop or the vegetables in the market. So the cost will increase. Are you getting this? Okay. What else the agrochemicals do? They improve the soil quality. We can mix it in the soil. So the quality of the soil is increased. Hence the crop quality is increased. Right? Lower labor costs resulting in more affordable food. Of course, it is directly aligned with the cost. More affordable food. You can protect your plants from disease and plants, which again will increase the crop yield. Yes or no? Okay. You can also provide larger amount of food to non-agricultural population. Not every area has an agricultural land. So wherever there is an agricultural land, people produce their crops and then they distribute all over the area. That means we can grow more crops using agrochemicals. That is the takeaway of the agrochemicals, right? Now let's see what are the disadvantages. We are using chemicals. So definitely, if these chemicals are used in excess, when we are continuously using these chemicals, there are chances of contamination of the crop products. We are going to consume these crops, and if these chemicals start getting accumulating in the plants, in the fruits and everything, we are also going to consume this, and we are also storing these chemicals in our body. So they are toxic to the species which are feeding on these plants or the fruits, right? Like I told you, example of DDT, it bioaccumulates, right? Apart from that, of course, the soil and the groundwater is contaminated, because ultimately these chemicals are going to get absorbed by the soils. These chemicals are going to go through the rainwater into the groundwater, right? So, or to the seas, or the lakes and everything, and they are going to harm the groundwater. They are also going to harm the aquatic life. So because of all this, they can disrupt the ecosystem. There is lot of health risk to the people who are applying agrochemicals. You must have seen these images that they have to wear those kits and then spray the agrochemicals on the crops. Yes or no? Okay, because if they accidentally come across these agrochemicals, if they inhale them, if they touch them, then the people who are using the agrochemicals, they are at the risk. They can kill other useful organisms, and they may also cause birth defects. So what do you think we should do? Should we use agrochemicals or should we not use agrochemicals? And if you want to use agrochemicals, what type of agrochemicals can we use for this? Just let me know. Come on. What do you think? What should we do? Anyone? What should we do? What is the alternative for this? What do you think is the alternative for this? Anyone? Who can say? Yes? Come on, unmute yourself. Let me know. What should we do? I want to use agrochemicals, but the agrochemicals that we are using are toxic. What should we do? Hello? What should we do? Best quality का agrochemical. But then what does that mean? Best quality का agrochemical मतलब क्या? This is what we are studying are artificial synthetic ones. What else? What we are studying, okay, reduce the quantity, but then if you reduce the quantity, can we get that much growth of the crops? If you reduce the quantity, the crop quality may not be proper. The amount of crops that we produce may not be proper. Then the cost of the crops may go on increasing. Any other option? Come on, think. Any other option? Any other option? Biofertilizers. That's right. Biofertilizers, biopesticides. In ancient India or the our older generations, when there was no boom of such synthetic pesticides or synthetic fertilizers, we used to use biofertilizers and biopesticides. Can you quickly give an example of a biofertilizer? Anyone? In villages, we get that. What is it? Cow dung. Yes, very, very good biofertilizer, very good pesticide also. It has so many advantages. Okay. Neem is again a very good biopesticide. So what are biopesticide? From the name itself, we come to know these are the natural pesticides which are non-toxic. These are derived from natural materials like animals, plants, bacteria, and they are very good for pesticides and fertilizers. What are the advantages? These are less toxic. They affect only target pest. So you don't have to worry that they will kill our pets, they will kill our other animals, or they will affect us. Okay? These are effective in very small quantities. Because they are natural, they decompose very quickly. They don't bioaccumulate. Okay, they are eco-friendly, they are non-polluting, they are biodegradable, and they are most importantly more effective in long term. They are natural, so even if you are using in excess, they are not going to harm your environment or anyone who is using that. Are you getting this? You can see the difference between the biopesticides versus chemicals. Biopesticides are friendly, chemicals are harmful. Biopesticides do not cause pollution. Chemicals cause different types of pollution, water pollution, soil pollution, right? The biopesticides are natural. They can be available from natural sources, hence they are much cheaper. Okay, then pests never develop the resistance. This is very, very important. What happens is when we continuously spray the chemicals, the pests, the insects, the fungi, they develop a resistance towards the chemicals. But with biopesticides, the pest will never develop a resistance. Are you understanding this? And hence now awareness is there among the people to use more biopesticides and less of chemicals. So there are many biopesticides nowadays available in the market. Okay, so let's see some of the biopesticides that we can use. So you can see this over here, Bt toxin. So what is it? It's a cryprotein which kills the insects which is feeding on the plant. It's a bacteria. You can see it over here. This is an enhanced image of that. Okay, this the protein is produced by Bacillus thuringiensis. Okay, so this is a kind of bacteria, and you can see these are the characteristics. It's rod shaped gram positive bacteria, right? It's found in the soil. Okay, so because it is natural, it is found in the soil. If you add more to the soil, this can be a very good bio pesticides. So what is it toxic to? It is toxic to caterpillars, it is toxic to flies, it is toxic to beetles. So these are the pests or the insects which from which we can protect our plants. Are you understanding this, students? So you will remember it this way. What is it? It's a bacteria. And what does it kill or what does it protect our plant from? Right? Are you understanding this? Okay. So even if this is present in excess, it is not going to cause any harm to our plants or the soils. Okay. Next are the microbes, Bacillus subtilis. Now what is it? It kills fungi. So this is a fungicide. Okay, this is a fungicide. This is used to treat variety of plant disease. It kills the fungi, including, see, the whatever images that I have given over here, these things can be cured, or these fungi growth can be stopped by using these microbes. Okay, so what do they stop? They stop the gray mold. This is your gray mold. Okay, see how the strawberry has turned gray. You must have seen this on the fruits, right? Powdery, see this powdery mildew. This is your powdery mildew. Some plants or some leaves. These are the different types of fungi. I've just shown you some example. This is the walnut blight. So this is how they spoil the walnuts, right? Okay, this is fire blight. The leaves turn brown very easily, oranges very easily. So this is again affecting the growth of a plant. Are you getting this? Are you understanding this? Okay. So you can just remember what is the role of Bacillus subtilis. It affects all types of these types of fungi and protects our plants. Okay. Shall I proceed? Any questions so far? Anything you would like to say or ask? Okay. I hope everything is very easy to understand. Yes. Next is Carranza oil. Now, some of you must be using this oil at home also. Okay, it is extracted from Carranza tree. You must have seen this tree nearby, right? These are the seeds of the Carranza, and this is a very useful oil. Okay, we can use it in our everyday life. It is used for treating lots of skin infection also. It has a very good antiseptic properties. Okay, so it's a natural pest repellent. It's a oil, it's a pest repellent, so you can use it every day also in your house to prevent from attacking our food crops, or preventing our house from the attacks of the pest. It has lot of antiseptic properties. It is natural, of course, cost effective, environmentally friendly, and in reach of common villagers and farmers in India, because these trees can be grown anywhere and you just have to extract the oil from the seeds. So this is like available very naturally, very easily, hence its cost is also very low. And for us in our everyday life, we can use for treating lot of skin infections. Like not only for the plants, we can use it on the skin also. So even if the person who is handling this as a pesticide, definitely he has no toxic effect through it, right? So what is it used for? It is used for a lot of skincare purposes. Psoriasis, skin ulcers, dandruff, you can apply it to your head also as a hair oil. Okay, so these are the advantages of Carranza oil. And the next one, all of you must be aware of this, neem oil. Yes or no? Neem oil, very 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 effective antiseptic, fungicide. You say it and it has that property. Okay, so what is this neem? It is, you can see over here, azadirachtin. This is your azadirachtin. This is the chemical component of the neem. Okay, it's a very good insect repellent. You can use a diya of neem oil. Okay, you can lit a diya of neem oil and keep the mosquitoes and the flies away. It has a nice aroma also, right? Sometimes people used to put these neem leaves. People do this in villages also. So before taking a bath in the hot water, you just put this neem leaves, allow that extract to come into that hot water and take a shower with that water. It has a good antiseptic property. It is very good for our skin. Okay. So how does it act? It acts by affecting the reproductive and digestive system of the pest. Okay, it is cold press. This is very important. When you cold press it, the decomposition of the oil doesn't take place. So whatever oil we are getting, it is natural without any decomposition. It acts internally as well as externally. Okay, it possesses fungicidal property, it possesses pesticidal property, insecticidal, herbicidal, all in one. All in one. Yes or no? It's, you can say it is a super pesticide because all the properties are present in the neem. Are you understanding this? It is non-toxic to humans or the birds or the animals, like say cows or buffaloes who are feeding on the plants, right? It is definitely a non-toxic to them. And most important, non-carcinogenic, because there are certain synthetic chemicals, synthetic pesticides which are carcinogenic. Whereas neem, because it is natural, it is not carcinogenic. And our ancestors used to use combination of say neem and neem oil or the neem leaves or the cow dung. They used to use such natural pesticides only, natural regulators. Nowadays, they started using the synthetic, but now the awareness is is being created slowly, and people are again switching to natural pesticides. So, if any one of you is interested in agriculture, or if you are having a field, or you are in the business of the agriculture, try to promote these natural pesticides. Okay, and if you already are having fields, then try to switch from the synthetic one to these natural ones. Okay, have you all understood this? Yes, students? Okay, okay. Now let's quickly finish off this chapter. Let's see how to synthesize the synthetic pesticides. Okay, some growth hormones. Okay, so we are going to study indole 3 acetic acid. This is your indole 3 acetic acid. So you will have to learn the synthesis, start from the starting material. So what is the starting material that we are using? Phenyl hydrazine. This is your phenyl group, and this functional group is called as hydrazine functional group. So this is our phenyl hydrazine reacting with acetaldehyde. Okay, so water molecule is eliminated. This oxygen and this hydrogen, they are removed as water. So condensation reaction is taking place. We get hydrozones. This moiety is called as hydrozone. Okay, and in presence of an acid, cyclization takes place and there is a ring formation over here, and this is how you get indole. Got it? Now see the difference between indole 3 acetic acid and indole. So what we have to do, what is this position? This is position number 3. We are going to study heterocyclic compounds, in which we are also going to study about these reactions. So this is position number 1, this is position number 2, and this is position number 3. That is why we call it as what? Indole 3 acetic acid. So we want to put this group. So what we should do? We should carry out acetylation. So what are we going to use? Monochloroacetic acid. See how it's not exactly acetylation. Now what happens here? There is a H over here. So H from this position and Cl, they get eliminated, and this type of substitution takes place. Okay, this is a salt because now you are using a base. This H is substituted by potassium, and now we can do acidification and get back our acetic acid. This is how the synthesis of indole 3 acetic acid is carried out. Have you all understood this? This synthesis you have to remember. Remember it this way. It is synthesized from phenyl hydrazine. Okay. Let's see the next synthesis, endosulfan. Endosulfan is used as an insecticide. It is a synthetic insecticide. Okay, it's a synthetic insecticide. This is the structure of endosulfan. the one which I am showing over here. This is your endosulfan. Are you understanding this? This is your endosulfan. So what are we going to use? We are going to use hexachlorocyclopentadiene. So what you can think of, there are two things over here. You can just cut this group here. So this is one moiety and this is the second moiety that we are going to combine. Okay, sorry. So this is hexachlorocyclopentadiene reacting with 2-butene 1,4-diacetate. This is butene 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and this is the diacetate group. This is a Diels-Alder reaction. We are going to study this Diels-Alder reaction under photochemical reactions. Okay, so Diels-Alder reaction takes place. So the addition is here. It takes place at this position. So see the cursor. This is the addition. Sorry. This is the addition. These are the positions where the addition is going to take place. Okay, and you get this type of compound. And now we just want a sulfonyl group over here. So react it with thionyl chloride. These two H and Cl are eliminated as HCl and this group gets attached over here. This is called as synthesis of endosulfan. So you're going to study this synthesis, right? And the last one is this. So we have just given you some examples of natural pesticides that we can use, and like these are some of the substances which are easily available at our homes and we can use it in our own kitchen garden. Okay, so if those who are interested in gardens or gardening, or most of us have these plants, pots and everything, so we can use this. So just look at this neem leaf. It is available very easily. You can just go on the road and you can see one or two neem plants anywhere. So you can just take the neem leaves, and it has good culinary properties also. You can use it in different recipes also. Salt sprays, a very good insecticide. Salt is a very good pesticide. Okay, then onion and garlic spray, very nice. You can use, even if the onion leaves, if you are having this leftover of the onions, or you can just mix it with the soil. Okay, eucalyptus oil, all of us have eucalyptus oil. It is also a very good insect repellent, right? Shaven tea, you must be aware of this, right? This is your shaven tea. That is also used as a good pesticide, insecticide, fungicide, whatever you may call it. Fine. Have you all understood this, students?